1, 2, 3,
Making
4.
all these waves and I wonder where the days went. I sit and think of you. I hope the feeling's mutual. I'm seeing all you gave and somehow don't see me then. Close to what I do to break into seems natural. These days are great. There's work to do. Would you like to work with me? I'd love to work you. These days are great, and so are you. I think it's something positive and negative too.
What up, y'all? Babylon 5 Podcast, Episode 9. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if it is. How are you? I'm Jermaine Event, your faithful host. I'll be here week after week. How's everybody doing? How's your week been? All right. On what? Me, same old. Work, watching combat sports and yada yada. Music and yada yada. Just doing all that. Let me throw you out of social medias real quick. It's episode 9. You can follow the podcast on Twitter. The Twitter account for the podcast is Babylon5Pod. You can follow my personal account at My Name's Jermaine. You can email the account for whatever reason, inquiries. If you guys trying to book your boy for whatever reason, you know how they be doing the podcast things, and you're like, man, this dude is amazing. He needs to be a part of this. Send your boy an email. Send me those events. Let me know what's going on. It's Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow, subscribe to this podcast at babylon5.podbean.com. You can listen to this podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much anywhere but SoundCloud. I could throw it on SoundCloud soon. I think SoundCloud allows me to embed like the audio. I'm not sure. I can't figure it out from Podbean, and I'd like to embed because I think that'd be dope. So the other day, I was just randomly, and I'll say random because I started watching the Democratic debate that was on the other day, and I only say it's random because I view like the presidency as like it's a fallacy. I see the president as a figurehead. You know what I'm saying? I don't really see him as the person with power. Let's look at it from like the real aspect of it all. Let's say Obama was like, yo, I'm gonna give everybody like free healthcare, but the House is majority Republican and they're like, nah, we're not doing that. Then he has no power to do anything. He can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's look at it from that aspect, not like crazy conspiracy theorists like that I used to be like aspect. Let's look at it from a real aspect, all right? So the president doesn't really have any power in that. So I didn't really care to get deep into it. I feel like I've been burnt by presidential candidates in the past. So I wasn't really paying like a lot of attention. I would pay attention to certain candidates. Did Joe Rogan's podcast, the Gang did the podcast, Tulsi Gabbard did the podcast, I think Beto did the podcast a while back. I'm not sure if anybody else did. There was a lot of people up there on that stage that I had never even heard their names before. This was my first time. I guess I had maybe seen Elizabeth Warren before, but I wasn't really vibing with her or anything before. And then in this one, I thought she was like kind of off of her rocker, to be honest with you. Like, it was like, I don't know, man. It was like, whoa, chill out, lady. Like, just relax take a few breaths before you respond here. She was flying off the handle. Yeah, so, well, that's because that's the way I look at the presidency. I'm sorry to speak like that. That's the way I look at the presidency, so I don't really care about your policies, because at the end of the day, if everybody doesn't also understand that they need to pay attention to these other elections, if they don't pay attention to that shit, and we don't control the House, then what you're saying doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's cool. It's cool to get the right person into the chair, to get the right person sitting in that position. That's cool, you know? That's a part of the plan, but we also need to make sure that we're paying attention to these other elections, these smaller elections, like throughout the years. Like, it's not just this one time every 4 years, let's go vote. Nah, man, it's a continual thing. It's a continual struggle that most people don't understand. So, like, and it's just frustrating. It frustrates me, so I don't really care for this aspect, because I know other people will fucking ignore the other part of it. Anywho, I started watching this. And so beforehand, I was already, like, if I was going to vote for somebody, like, the only candidate that I looked into a little bit that I vibed with was my boy Andrew Yang. Yang Gang. Make America think harder. You know what I'm saying? That's my boy Yang, and I'm still, even after watching that, like, I watched, like, a little bit of the debates when he was in it, like, last time, because I've just been a fan of Yang. I like his ideas. I like what old boy's talking about. What else? So Booker, I thought Booker was cool. I posted in my homie Akil. He posted about the debates. He was giving shout outs to it was an article about the guy Cortez. And I was impressed by Cortez. I thought he was pretty dope. But I threw out, like, I think Booker's pretty cool. Sorry about that. I was like, I think Booker's pretty cool. And it was met with ridicule. People thought that was pretty ridiculous. And they were saying that he takes money from corporations while also claiming to be a person of the people. So I guess I didn't understand that aspect of it. But how I deciphered that was that Cory Booker is a politician. So that's how I heard that. Moving on. So Tulsi Gabbard, I was saying also in this post at another point that, because we were talking about he was talking about he wanted Cortez. He thinks Cortez would be a nice vice president. And I was like, I'm pulling for Yang Gabbard. That's what I was into from the little bit of knowledge the very little bit of knowledge that I knew, my uninformed opinion. I was rooting for Yang and Gabbard. And my buddy Akil, he was saying, yeah, he was into Gabbard as the vice president also. I don't think he was pulling for you. I think he wants Bernie. He wants Bernie and Gabbard. But there was this other guy who commented in it. It was, he was very upset that we would support Tulsi Gabbard. He was saying she was an Islamophobe, and so I Googled it. I Googled Tulsi Gabbard Islamophobe, and the first thing is that pops up is her website, and talks about how she was brought in for all these events, these Muslim events, and she has done all these things to help out Muslims and fight for Muslim rights. It's all these things and events that she's done, and all these places where she's the guest speaker, guest of honor, and I posted that, and he laughed at that and said, first off, don't Google anything. He said, Google's a paid corporation that's either being paid by those politicians or taking money from those politicians, and you're only going to get certain results. He's use alternate search engines. And he posted some articles that were showing that Tulsi Gabbard actually, she comes off pretty Republican in her actions. She usually supports most of the Republican actions, most of the Republican moves. She, I don't know if you guys remember back a few years ago, there was all these articles. The president in Egypt was committing this genocide, this mass genocide openly. And like right after that, or maybe like in the middle of that, she like went there to meet with him to like work out a deal between him and America. Like she was totally fine with that. There's like other incidents with like Syria. Like she's done like pretty shady dealings and like openly. And all that was definitely suppressed when I searched for it on Google. At first, when he was coming at me with these, he's laughing at what I'm saying. And like kind of, it almost felt like he was like, he's condescending, coming down at me for even thinking this way. But then, you know, instead of ignoring him and feeling like, fuck this dude, I thought to myself, there's a reason why he's this upset. I should try to consider that. I should try to understand why he's so upset that we would support this woman. And as I'm looking into it, she's got some pretty shady dealings. I mean, I think they all got pretty shady dealings, except for maybe Yang, because Yang isn't a politician. I feel like politician is synonymous with dirty, fucking filthy, porqueria, fucking So now I gotta rethink. Well, after reading this, it's like I don't think I could support Gabbard. If you guys look into Gabbard, you'll be like, holy fuck. You're claiming to not be in Islam. You got a pretty hard campaign on your website to try to push the agenda that you're not an Islamophobe. Nobody else, as I've seen, has anything like that. I couldn't really understand Warren's website. It was kind of jumbled. Yang is definitely a man of the people. Yang gang. Yeah, I'm Yang gang. I'm Yang gang. All right, you feel me? You feel me? And I gotta step away from my support of Tulsi Gabbard. I guess. Nah, for real. Like, if you guys look into it, like, she seems kind of fake. She doesn't seem kind of fake. She is pretty fake. I was looking at it and I was like, man, she reminds me of Obama. She reminds me of Barack Obama, the way she operates. And people loved Obama, but it's like, you understand these drone strikes, you understand Barack Obama campaigned on separating Mexican parents and their children. He campaigned on it, and he got elected on that. People loved him for it. Donald Trump's evil for that same thing that Barack Obama campaigned on. But what I'm saying is when I was reading all these things, I was like, she's a politician. She reminded me of Barack Obama. He's a politician. They're all dirty. A little bit. It's a dirty job. You're gonna get dirty. You playing shit. You're gonna get dirty. It's a dirty job. So I think the typical thing for people our age to do is right now, if we're talking presidential elections, I think the thing that seems normal and the thing that we should do without even questioning it is what it seems like is we should all be supporting Bernie Sanders. Yeah, sure. If you wanna do that, go ahead. You know, I can't really. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. If for all I'm saying, you could look in. I don't know your personal views, and I'm not trying to condemn you for those. But you can look into those views as Tulsi Gabbard, and you could be into everything she's into. I'm not. I'm against all of that. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to convince you. Well, I would love to convince you all to vote for Andrew Yang, but I'm not trying to tell you not to vote for whoever the hell you want to vote for, no matter who it is. Vote for whoever it is. What I'm saying is like, for me personally, I can't vote for Bernie Sanders. I can't even rock with it. I think his plans are outdated. Yang was shutting them down in the debates. They were talking about, you guys are trying to like put this like wealth tax or whatever the fuck they were talking about. He's like, yo, this was tried in all these countries and it failed right away in all those countries. Why are we trying to do that? I should have had the facts of what he said there. I'm sorry. But but Yang was like pointing out how like your plans have gone into effect and failed in other places. It's failed. All right. Bernie broke my fucking heart. All right. I'm gonna be real with you. Bernie Sanders broke my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jermaine Event. Bernie Sanders broke my fucking heart, okay? I knew a lot of people. Let's go back in time, all right? Do you guys remember that time? There was a lot of, before it was decided on Hillary, do you remember how hot everything was? How people said never Hillary? You remember how hot it was? How everyone was saying, yo, these numbers are being rigged. Somehow Hillary's winning these places, but Bernie's winning the numbers. He's winning these elections, but somehow, like, Hillary's winning the states or whatever. It was a weird situation. I don't know if y'all remember how hot everything was. It was real personal. It got real personal. Politics always does. And at the time where you had somewhere where the opposition was Donald Trump, and you had to get the right person on the other side of there, and it got real personal. And I don't know if y'all remember this. Let's go back in time. Think about it. What happened when Bernie Sanders endorsed Hillary Clinton? Like 50% of the people who endorsed Bernie Sanders were so hurt by that they went and voted for Donald Trump. They then supported Donald Trump out of spite. The other half did not vote. I did not vote. I was like, Trump, Clinton, tomato, tomato. Tomato, tomato. My nigga. Bernie Sanders broke my fucking heart. He endorsed that woman, right? I remember it was like a year after the election. And I remember like I found my like Bernie pin, and I would put it on, like if I was wearing like a collared shirt, I'd put it right at the collar. Like I would just like wear it like in public. I'd wear a hat just to put it on there. Like, I would start to wear this, you know? I was starting to get the hype, and people would say things to me like, yo, that's over with. That's not happening. And I'd be like, nigga, if he stays alive, we can do it. That was my vibe. And then leading up to all these debates, I don't know, I think maybe it was like, I don't know what it was, but I think it was like a documentary, posted the video of Bernie Sanders endorsing Hillary Clinton. And that heartbreak that I felt that day came back. I don't know, it was almost like a hatred. It was like a real disgusting feeling when I just remembered. Because as I'm saying to y'all, for certain people, if you don't look into Hillary, then you don't understand why I'm saying tomato, tomato. I don't feel like we just needed to beat Trump. I felt like at that point we were screwed. The country was going to be moving into a bad direction. And his endorsement there, he should have fought it out to the end like he said he was going to do. And your endorsement hurt the Democratic Party in the end of the day anyway. It's impacts that we're feeling today because Donald Trump is the president, because of those ripple effects, because all those people chose to stay away from the polls, because, like, had Hillary beat him by fair means or whatever, I feel like she would have had that Democratic vote. Those people wouldn't have stayed home. Had it not been shady, but it was shady. And then he went along with the shadiness. And I didn't forget how that felt. Maybe I'm just that kind of emotional person. But the second I saw it, all those feelings came back. So it's right there. It's on site with me and Bernie. Nah, like, it just hurt me, man. He broke my heart when he endorsed Hillary, and that put us in a bad place even today. So for that, Mr. Sanders, and your wife used to steal money from niggas. His wife used to scam niggas. Let's be real about Bernie Sanders. You know, Bernie Sanders went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and whenever Joe would talk about, if someone brought up Bernie Sanders around Joe Rogan would go off about how his wife used to scam people. I think it was like some college scam or some shit. I should have looked into this. I didn't know I was going to go on this tangent. But she used to scam people. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. His wife used to scam people for years. And when it got found out, he was like, "Oh, I didn't know my wife was scamming these people." You didn't know your wife that you live with, you talk to every day, you see every day. You didn't know your wife was stealing money from all these people for all these years. You weren't aware of your wife's shady dealings because it happened more than once. So Joe Rogan would bring that up whenever someone would talk about Bernie. Bernie came on his podcast. He never once brought it up. You can say, "Hey, what happened with your wife scamming all these money out of her, scamming all these people out of her money?" That seems shady to me. But Bernie is a politician. Porqueria. All right? I don't think too many of them are better than the next. And that's why I'm Yang Gang. That's not the only reason why. He's got great ideas. He's got great ideas. You guys should definitely look into Andrew Yang. I just can't bring myself to support Bernie after that, after what we're going through right now as a part of him endorsing her. There was ramifications for that. And we are dealing with those ramifications today, ladies and gentlemen. So I cannot support that man. You can if you want to. If you don't care that Donald Trump is the president, most likely as a result of him endorsing Hillary Clinton, go ahead, support him. I'm not trying to sway you either way. I'm not trying to tell you to look into Andrew Yang, and you'll see how all his opinions all his ideas are way better than everybody else's. I'm just saying, look into it. I'm not trying to say that that'll sway your opinion in any way. If it does, it does. Because if you look into his if you look into his plans and you're like, wow, these are better than everybody else's, then why wouldn't it sway your opinions? I'm just saying, look into Andrew Yang. Look into Andrew Yang. Anywho. Oh, before I leave that, I just want to say Cortez. I don't even know this nigga's full name. I didn't know half the niggas up there. I didn't know half the people. I only knew like 5 of the people up there. I mean, I knew Kamala, but I'm naturally programmed to ignore Kamala whenever she speaks. To be honest, from what I heard, she was like a black slaver. That's my opinion of her. So I tune her out automatically. But the dude Cortez, he was saying how like police amount to are the major source of the gun violence problem in America, and that needs to be addressed. And I was like, holy shit, why is no other president talking about that? You know, in other countries where like cops don't have guns, like there are basically like no deaths by police. It's like rarely ever happens, and it shouldn't happen. Are we not trying to like detain criminals? Are we not trying to reform people? I thought. Anywho, but Cortez said that, and I thought that was cool. Anywho, let's move on. Let's move on to something random that I saw, and it really bothered me. It really messed with my soul, ladies and gentlemen. I saw this actor who played Overton on the show Living Single. He was talking about how Living Single debuted 1 year before Yeah, exactly 1 year before Friends. All right, and I watched the show after I see this interview, but and the intro is the same, essentially. I mean, Living Single's all hip hop, but it's like, yo, the font's kind of the same. It's just like the shots in New York, and then they're dancing in front of their couch, which I thought was interesting. In Living Single, 1 year before Friends, their intro is them dancing in front of their couch. I was like, holy shit. And he talks about how, so 1 year before Friends, like Living Single starts, it's a show about 6 friends who are professionals for the most part. And just like Friends, living in New York, living in these apartments, and they're just friends, professionals. That's just it. That's the whole show. And it was a hit. It's a successful show. But back in those days, like even now, like an all-black cast, like those shows aren't necessarily seen as like just a show. They're seen as a black show. So it was the number one black show. Not a lot of white people knew about Living Single at the time, unless you watched black shows. But yeah, so it wasn't mainstream it wasn't popular to a white audience. And so a year after that, the white version of that, the white copy of Living Single, Friends debuted with those some mostly professional friends living in New York and dancing in front of their couch for the theme song. What the fuck, dude? It's trippy. It's trippy. And it's like, I'm watching it. You got the girl. I'm rewatching it. You got the girl on Living Single named Sinclair, who's like the hippie-ish kind of chick who's just like the carbon copy. Like Phoebe's the carbon copy of Sinclair. It's like you can match it all up perfectly. It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. And I say the weirdest part about it all though is so back in those days. I think it's been. They said it's been lowered now, but how it worked back in those days. So like, if you did 5 seasons or 100 episodes of a show, after the 5th season's complete, then your show becomes syndicated, and at that point, you can make more money because then your show is gonna air on any channel that wants it. If you want an example for what I'm talking about. Do you remember being a kid and watching Friends on every single channel? I remember, like, at one point, it was like, oh, I don't want to watch this episode of Friends, but this one's good. I switched to another episode of Friends that was on another channel. That's because at that point, that show had become syndicated. Living Single it put out 4.5 seasons. They were halfway through the 5th season, and the show was just pulled off the air right before syndication. And had it become syndicated, just like Friends, it would have been available to be on all of those channels. And it was already the number one black show, so I'm pretty sure it would have been very successful on all those other networks with all the reruns. But I feel like that would have been a problem for Friends if you would have had basically the exact same show plastered around every single network all day 1 year before they were able to do that. They weren't able to be syndicated at that point because of they started a year later. And I think that aspect of it is pretty interesting, that the show got shut down mysteriously, right before syndication. And the actor that played Overton was talking about how he didn't understand how they were the number one show on their network at the time. And other shows would get picked up by other networks if they were going to be pulled off the air that weren't number one shows. And he's like, but we are the number one show. And he's like, so I thought there was no way the show would come to an end, but it just did. No one even made an attempt to pick up the show. It's pretty weird, pretty odd that right before that show would have been able to be shown to a broader audience, it was pulled off the air. Right before the show that Friends stole. Friends later became known as the most iconic idea that anybody ever had. I remember somebody was telling me that they wrote a paper about how I Met Your Mother is just the new Friends. And it's like, yo, all of it's a copy of Living Single, man. You didn't write that in your paper. You didn't put that part in there. So Friends is the most iconic show. It became syndicated. I saw it because it was on it was on all the time on every channel. And everybody calls it the most, one of the most iconic shows, man. It's crazy. It's crazy how they do us, ain't it? Crazy how they do us, B. It's crazy how they do us, B. Show's funnier, I feel like. I feel like they were better professionals. You got a lawyer. She's a divorce attorney, a stockbroker. You had a woman, Khadijah, played by Queen Latifah, who owned and ran her own very successful magazine, hip-hop magazine in the early 90s, which was a big thing back then. You got Overton, who was a handyman. I think Sinclair was just a secretary. So she's the parallel or the carbon copy of Phoebe, who Phoebe was just I guess Phoebe became a massage therapist, but she would bounce around and do random things, help Monica do random shit. She's just the random person. And anywho, it's the same show. And it was pulled off air for obvious reasons. And I just think that's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. I just want to tell you guys I'm sad about living single. Just want to touch on that. I was watching UFC Boston Friday night. Pretty good fights. Shout out to Macy Barber. I fell asleep. My wife woke me up. Because I was hype about this fight. I was like, yo, this girl Macy Barber's about to whoop this girl's ass. I was like, should be a good fight because they're both two prospects. And Jillian Robertson looked good in her last fight. But my wife woke me up, and I wake up and Macy Barber's just throwing hands, just lightning fast hands, just destroying Jillian Robertson. I woke up just as the fight, and it ended in the first round, just as this fight was ending. So shout out to Macy Barber. She calls out Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt's openly sounded pretty scared of Macy Barber. She's like, no, I don't need to fight her. I'm big name. I don't want to do that for her career. It's you sound pretty scared. You got one fight left on your contract, and you're openly saying no, I don't want to do that for her. I don't want to give her that. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Greg Hardy, former NFL player, he fought. So the story at the end of the day is that going into the third round, Greg Hardy, he was a little tired after the second round. He was wrestling a bit. He seemed a lot tired, at the end of that second round. He goes into his corner, and for whatever reason, they give him an inhaler, and they let him use his inhaler. The doctor there, USADA official or whatever, or the Massachusetts State's Athletic Commission, told him it was okay to use his inhaler going into the third round. So he used it, and and then he went into the third round refreshed, finished the fight out. Afterwards, the fight was ruled a no contest, the next day, because it's illegal to do that. And it was insane that he just blatantly did that on national TV. Internet, I don't know how it works, but he did it on TV. He did it on ESPN, ladies and gentlemen. Just used his inhaler going into the last round. He was clearly exhausted, used that inhaler, got his second win. And, he looked phenomenal on the stand-up, Beforehand, he was just throwing these like, he was a strong guy. He was just trying to knock people out with one punch. But in this fight, he was throwing leg kicks, throwing like jab. He had a great jab. He was really piecing this guy up. His stand up, his striking has improved drastically. That should have been the story. But then you used your inhaler going into that last round after you looked phenomenal. You looked phenomenal in that fight, my guy. You were winning. You were winning a hot sofa. And then you went over there and you fucked it up. Fucking inhaler gate is what we're calling it. They said they're appealing the ruling because he was told, it's right there on camera. He asked the state athletic commission if it's okay if he uses his inhaler in between rounds, and they said yes. So he used it. He was like, I asked, and then I did what I was told I could do. He was like, that's all I've been taught to do. And I'm like, yo, I respect everything about that. I respect that, my guy. You asked, you were told, it's okay. So how are you wrong here? I don't think you are. Moving on from that, co-main event. If you guys were following me, I was talking about Jeremy Stephens versus Yair Rodriguez. That fight ended in a no contest in Mexico a few weeks back. And they had the rematch here in Boston. And at this point, because Yair was acting like a little bitch, I wanted Jeremy Stephens to come in here and win that fight. But as I predicted from the first fight, Yair came in with all these crazy kicks. He's hitting them with all these crazy angles, just lighting up the body. As I said in my prediction for the first fight, lighting up the body. Kick, lighting up the body. From his southpaw stance. Whenever he switches in the southpaw, throws a kick, lighting up the body. And Stephens is just collapsing. And that's what I predicted. I was like, Stephens has a weak fucking core. It's been on display. If you want to beat Stephens, hit him in the body. And that's what happened. And he pretty much beat the shit out of him for 2 rounds. Yair beat the shit out of Stephens for 2 rounds, kept lighting up the body. And then the third round, Stephens came at him. At the end of the second round, Stephens like kind of reversed, kind of swept him on the ground. Like, if you don't know what a sweep is, I'll try to explain it. I don't even know too much. But so if you're grappling, like, let's say I'm on bottom or whatever, for whatever position, if I just feel how that person's moving and I see if they're lighter at a certain moment, and I just take that moment to use their momentum against them and sweep from a bottom position to a top position, to a more dominant position, if I'm explaining that correctly. Yeah, I think so. So he swept him at the end of the second round, started landing some strikes. And then in the third round, Yair just like kind of grabbed him and tucked guard and just tried to hold on to him. And pretty much after he whooped his ass for 2 rounds straight, it's a 3-round fight. Didn't matter what happened. As long as he didn't get knocked out, as long as he didn't get submitted in that last round, he didn't care. He wasn't even trying to fight in that third round. So Yair won that fight by hitting up the body. What was the main event? The main event was Dominic Reyes versus Chris Weidman. Ended in a first-round knockout. I didn't want that to happen. Chris Weidman seems like a nice guy. But he's lost 5 of his last 6, all by knockout. Maybe it's time to wrap it up. He's close. He's like 35, 36. He was former middleweight champion. He famously knocked out Anderson Silva when Anderson Silva seemed untouchable. And now you've been knocked out in 5 of your last 6 fights. Knocked out cold. I think it's time to wrap it up. You seem like a nice guy, man. I don't want you to get hurt anymore. This is life-changing shit. And behind me, because I like to put random things on to stimulate the mind while I'm talking, I got Dragon Ball. Well, I put the Majin Buu saga on, I thought, but now it's Dragon Ball Super. which made me remember that today, ladies and gentlemen, it should be a new manga, a new issue of Dragon Ball Super. They're fighting this nigga named Moro. He's like this gigantic goat wizard motherfucker who eats planets, eats the energy of planets. And now I think Vegeta's about to learn instant transmission, my nigga. It's about to go down. And this nigga Goku is probably like training with God's son. He's training with God's son. I'm over this shit. He's training with Jesus. You feel me? Goku is basically training with Jesus right now to learn how to do instant transmission. I ain't got time for this. Not instant transmission. What's that shit called? Ultra Instinct. To learn how to master Ultra Instinct. The most dominant, effortless fucking ability where, I don't have to think about anything and my body just moves perfectly out of the way and then attacks people without me even thinking about it. Oh, that move where I do nothing? Okay. Fuck that nigga. Fuck that nigga, Goku. Got no time for this, man. We're going to talk about Errol Spence. I was talking about this guy. He's a boxer. He had a great fight against, what's his name, Spencer? All right, well, this is Errol Spence Jr., so he was fighting Sean Porter. He's fighting Sean Porter, and it was one of the greatest fights. I was talking about it. I just, randomly caught it. And he dropped him later in, I think it was, the 11th round. He dropped Sean Porter. It was a great fight. Errol Spence Jr. just recently was driving his Lamborghini too fast, I guess. Rolled it a few times. Got flung from this car. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Got lucky. He had maybe a few broken teeth, but other than that, just maybe a scratch. No broken bones. No real major injuries other than a couple broken teeth. That's all he's got. But he's getting charged with a DWI. And I looked it up. So state of Texas, well, he's rich, but as a normal person, he's looking at a max 180 days in jail, and but he's rich, and then a $2,000 fine, and maybe customer service. He's rich though, so he got a lawyer who knows people. I think that's how it works. If you watch Law and Order, you gotta know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that used to go to summer camp with old boy. Then you good. But yeah. So he's facing he just got charged with a DWI. I was looking into it to see how serious it was. By the looks of it, he should be able to continue boxing. Whatever the sentence should be, it shouldn't affect him too much. Hopefully not. He's famous, so maybe he would be put in segregation regardless. Be left alone for the most part. If he was to have to serve time. Pretty reckless. He's a pretty exciting boxer. I just think it was pretty crazy that had to happen. Yeah, I'm just happy that that's it for him. Get it together. I wanted to touch back on, I was saying DMX checked into rehab, and I put some stank on how I was talking about Darkman X, how I was addressing Darkman X. And it turned out that Darkman X didn't relapse. He checked in to rehab to prevent himself from relapsing. He was hanging around the wrong people. So to prevent it, he checked himself into rehab just to get away from those people. And I think that's pretty admirable. So I just want to touch on that with my boy. I don't know where I'm at. As far as time, I know where I'm at. As far as life, let's see. Oh, shit. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Conor. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So, Conor McGregor was tweeting to Frankie Edgar. And I'm telling y'all this because I booked a flight to I didn't book a flight. I just planned a trip. I booked an Airbnb in Vegas for UFC 245. I just, I'm hyped about combat sports, as you can tell. So I wanted to go, but I was also, when I booked that Airbnb, the day I booked it was when Tony Ferguson beat, or maybe it wasn't when Tony Ferguson beat, it was when somebody, it looked to me that Tony Ferguson was going to face Khabib in Vegas, December 14th is what I thought. That's how it was looked. So I booked an Airbnb. I'm like, I'm not missing that. Turns out that's not happening. Turns out it's not happening. I was like, fuck. Like the fights that are happening, you got there's three championship fights, which usually like never happens. So that's interesting. You got Amanda Nunes taking on Jermaine Durandamy, which I'm rooting for Jermaine Durandamy for obvious reasons. Well, she's a dope fighter. She's from the Netherlands, and I randomly like to teach myself Dutch here and there. So I'm hype on Jermaine Durandamy. I get bored. I be bored, and I'll be like, oh, we can pop open the Duolingo, and we're going to do some Dutch for a couple hours. That's how that is. So there's that fight. Max Holloway, who I'm a big fan of, but I'm like, all right. Max Holloway versus Volkanovski. That should be a really good fight, but I was like, all right, whatever. Then they threw in the main event as Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington, which is going to be a cool wrestling match. It's going to be a cool wrestling match. I was just like, fuck, I don't really want to go anymore. So I didn't book the flight or anything. I'm like, dude, I can watch this from my TV. But Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen, he starts tweeting Frankie Edgar. It was Frankie Edgar's birthday the other day, and he's tweeting him, happy birthday, see you in December. And Frankie was like, I've already agreed to the fight. It's up to you and Dana White, that is, to sign the paperwork. And Conor tweets like make the fight, Dana. There it is. And I'm getting fucking hype all over again. Getting hype. You know what I'm saying? I lost that hypeness. All right? I lost it. Didn't really care. I was starting to, the day this happened, I was starting to think like, man, I should just cancel. I'm not trying to go all the way to Vegas. I've always thought of Vegas as like the worst place in America. You know what I'm saying? Just fucking debauchery. I've always thought of Vegas as the worst place in America. So I was just like, man, you gotta give me hype to go to Vegas. You gotta give me hype, nigga. But I lost interest. I was like, there's no Tony Ferguson, there's no Khabib. But Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen. If Conor McGregor's on this card, I want to be there. But now I don't know, because Dana White's response when he finally chimed in was like, this fight makes no sense. Dana White says this fight makes no sense. Conor was supposed to fight Frankie Edgar years ago, and it never materialized. And now they're trying to book it now. Well, now Conor wants it, and maybe he's just too tall for Frankie. Dana doesn't want to put Frankie in there with somebody that tall again. Like, he just fought Max Holloway, and it didn't work out too well for him with the height difference. And Conor just wants to get a quick win. I was just watching this round table with UFC fighters, and like Henry Cejudo and all them, they're talking about like he built up his name so much that he can't just take a regular fight. He has to fight for a championship in his next fight, because if he goes out there and just loses to someone that isn't the championship, then all of a sudden he is no longer that person that he was. Like, his stock drops heavily. Like, he's not who he is right now if he goes out and loses to just someone who is not the champion. That's how it works. So that's why he has to set it up to fighting older and aging, close to retirement Frankie Edgar in a weight class where in 155, they're urging Frankie Edgar to fight at 135, and he wants to fight him 2 weight classes above at 155. So Dana White doesn't want to make the fight. I hope he makes the fight. I mean, but it's like I don't care to go to Vegas. I don't care for Vegas. I don't care for most places. Denver's cool. Colorado's cool in general, but I don't fuck with most places. All I need in this life is sin. Is me and my wife. Yeah, Conor. I hope he's fighting. I'm hyped. I was getting hyped. And then Dana White started to break my little heart. Dana White's damn near the new Bernie Sanders. Please don't break my heart. My achy, blacky heart. I'm gonna get up out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I was gonna give you guys some random stories today, and then I was writing out the story because there's a little bit of a script to this madness. You know, I don't just come in here naked. There's a little bit of a script, and I started writing down, and I was like, why am I telling this story at all? I was gonna tell you guys the full story of South by. But even before I got to the nitty-gritty, I was like, why am I even telling this story? I don't care for this story. So, and that would have pushed this podcast to like an hour and a half, and I don't know if I'm trying to do all that. So, if you want to talk to your boy, you got some subjects you want me to babble about, hit me up on the podcast on Twitter. You can the Twitter account is Babylon5Pod. You can hit me up at my main account, my personal account, I mean. My name's Jermaine. Personal account is at my name's Jermaine. I'm sorry to rambling here. I'm babbling here. This is Babylon 5 Podcast. You can email your boy at babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow, like, subscribe to the podcast, to the podcast. At babylon5.podbean.com. You can listen to the podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple Music, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts play. Yeah. And just want to say I love you all. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting me. It's just like, even if I only had like one viewer, like one listener a week, like I'd be like, that's dope. I'm happy that you're listening. But the fact that however many, it's growing randomly. I don't know how, but somehow there's an audience. The audience is growing, and I like that. It's pretty cool. If you guys find it interesting, I find you guys interesting. Talk to me if you want. But I love you all. I love you all. Yeah, I'm just a black hippie. No Kendrick. But yeah, I'm gonna get up out of here. Hope you all have a fantastic week. Thanks for spending some time with me. I will be back next week with some stories, maybe story time. If you guys are into that, if you like story time, if you want story time or subjects, let me know. I'm trying to mix it up for you guys. But all right, have a good week. Peace.